That's Jimmy Stein. I'm Clint Lamb, and this is the Cover Crimson YouTube channel. Jimmy, we were hoping we would enter today and get back on these here airwaves together and be celebrating an Alabama victory over Georgia, and that is exactly what happened. Now, granted, did it play out how any of us thought it was going to play out? It was a close game. I guess all of us were expecting that. There was a lot of anxiety and uncertainty, down the stretch, which caused maybe some heart rate increases. But overall, before we start getting into actually the details, offense, defense, whole 9 yards, what were some of your initial takeaways from the game?
First of all, just an excellent win. I'm not sure there's a better win in college football so far this season. I mean, we've completed a whole month. Some teams have played 5 times, and I'm not sure there's a better win in college football. Beating a top 5 team on the road and beating such a legitimate top 5 team on the road. Oregon did something similar this weekend, but I think we all agree that Georgia's track record as an elite program is above Penn State's right now. So just a fantastic win. There's not too many wins at Alabama that are historic because of Alabama's history, but that win qualifies. Anytime you beat a top 5 team on the road as an underdog, it's historic. Alabama's done it a lot. Doesn't make it any less historic. Imagine a quote lesser program doing what Alabama did. They would have toted the goalposts all the way back to their home state. But at Alabama, you almost expect to win these games. I thought Alabama might win or would win. Things had to go right, and they did. Shout out to all the stars, especially Ty Simpson. And I know we're going to talk about Ty a lot in this show, but Ty, in just his 4th career start, going on the road and playing that well against an elite defense, after all he's been through, after 4 years, took 4 years for Ty to put that performance together. And that's fine. That's fine. Most people, they never get to do it even once, no matter how long they try. But that was a 4 years in the making performance, and I hope Ty today feels like all of it was worth it.
Yeah, there's no doubt it was one of the top quarterback performances that I can remember from Alabama in recent memory. And really, maybe you could even go further than that, just because of how locked in he was. I mean, just getting the ball out quickly. We'll talk about the offensive line, and just, they do deserve some praise as far as the protection and all of that. But at the same time, we also need to understand some of that's Georgia and their inability to apply pressure on the opposing quarterback. Some of that is the scheme, which I've talked about a lot. They were getting the football out of Ty. Well, some of it was designed, to get the football out of Ty Simpson's hands quickly, but there was also, some of it Ty just processing lightning fast. I mean, and coming out of play action too. It wasn't like he's dropping back and he's reading. He's turning his back to the defense. He's flipping his hips around after play action. He's seeing something and immediately understanding where he needs to go with the football. One of the most impressive performances that I have seen a quarterback have in an Alabama uniform, given the circumstances. It is a hostile environment. Georgia, granted, they do have some limitations. They have some limitations in the secondary. They have some limitations as far as their pass rush, and all of that played in Alabama's favor. But at the same time, there were some issues, some breakdowns with the protection at times. Obviously, there was a couple of drops that were on the money throws. Really, his stats should have been even better. But just the ability to throw with accuracy and timing, knowing your protections, knowing the vulnerabilities within the defense, knowing where he wants to go with the football, whether it's pre-snap, what he thinks he's getting, and he's great at identifying and trying to understand how they're trying to disguise things, and he's picking up on little cues. And then, so some of that is anticipation, but then also when they do present him with a different picture post-snap, his ability to immediately identify what that is, process the information very quickly, and understand where he wants to go with the football. That is what is making him special. That's being a coach's son. That's sitting and learning for several seasons and having just a God-given ability to process information extremely quickly. And just his ability to make plays, his ability to throw with accuracy, the whole package. This is a special quarterback in a special system that can put up special numbers. That's the bottom line.
The reason, I was very excited about Ty in the preseason. The reason why I thought he would win the job back in 2023 and he didn't, and at the time I was wrong, and I was, it's a good thing we were wrong. He just wasn't ready then. He's ready now. But the reason I was so excited about him is there's really two types of quarterbacks that can win you college football games, I believe. And one is, and I hate the term. We talk about it all the time how I hate the term, but game manager. I hate that term. But what it means is, you said coach's son. To me, that's almost like a better description. But Ty has all the intangibles in place to be great. Growing up in that household for that dad, to be the kind of kid he is, a great athlete. He's a really good baseball player, gym rat, loves football. He's got all those intangibles. And you can just be that guy and win football games. I'm just going to bring up a couple of names, but they sort of fit that description. Maybe a Greg McElroy, maybe a Stetson Bennett. Those are, to me, game manager types that win the game because they manage it so well for their team, because they always get you in the right play. They don't turn over the football. That's one way to win. Another way to win is to just be so freaking good. We saw it with Milroe some of the time. No, not all the time. Some of the time, Milroe was just so freaking good athletically and with his arm talent. The combination of the two, the leg talent and the arm talent, that he was a playmaking quarterback. And those kind of guys can win you games. They can do a lot on their own. Okay. The reason I was just so excited about what Ty could be is here's the rare guy that can be both, because I see his Ty's better than the traditional label of game manager, because he's got NFL arm talent and NFL athleticism. But for a guy that's blessed with that physical skill, he's got those intangibles too, of being the coach's son and all that comes with. And that's why I thought he would win the job in 2023. It's why I've been so high on Ty Simpson. Now, all that said, to be honest, did I see this level of performance this quickly, 4 starts into his career as a starter, being able to beat a top 5 team on the road, bouncing back after a disappointing week 1 performance? That's where he's impressed even me, even though my expectations for him were really high.
Yeah, we've been high on him. I mean, the talent has always been there. And there are people, during the offseason, hey, there's nothing that indicates that he can be an elite or is going to be an elite quarterback based off of what he's given Alabama. First of all, sometimes you get the elites. There's 2 different kinds of elites, in my opinion. There are the guys who are on terrible teams and they just elevate the play of everybody around them, and they're dealing with drops and, pass protection breakdowns and zero run game. By the way, Ty Simpson in some ways is also dealing with that. But, going into the season, you've also got like the Joe Burrows, the Mac Jones that have elite talent, especially for the college level, but they're combining that with a great offensive line, a great group of running backs, a great offensive play caller. Joe Brady being a part of that passing game for LSU, Steve Sarkisian with Mac Jones, elite receivers, guys that can, create mismatches and stuff in the passing game. So sometimes it's also a combination of the entire package that can elevate a good quarterback or even a really good quarterback to an elite category. And that is where it's like Ty has the ability to be a really good to really good quarterback, but he's also going to be in a situation where that can be elevated to elite. Now, I think that I also underestimated just how good Ty Simpson would be. The processing is crazy fast. Like I just, and granted, I always thought he was a good processor. I always thought the ball placement, the anticipation, all of that stuff was there, not to this extent. And so he has even exceeded my expectations. I don't think we should be taking victory laps saying we knew this Ty Simpson was coming, because no one knew this Ty Simpson was coming. I promise you. You can have said that he was going to be really good, but to go on the road against a Kirby Smart led defense, a Glenn Schumann led defense in a hostile environment, and do what he did. Yes, there were some things in the second half, but they actually moved the football pretty well. It didn't always result in points. There were some things that kind of set them back a little bit. But the fact that he didn't really have any sort of consistent run game, he didn't have, I think the offense did help protect him as far as the protections. I think the offensive line did pretty well. Ryan Grubb did a phenomenal job from a play calling perspective. The defense, the fact that especially in the second half, Georgia, it really felt like Georgia was taking control of the game. The fact that they could control the clock with a run game, control tempo, try to keep Alabama off the field as much as possible. Like, that's some pressure that gets put on Ty Simpson. But, it's just it is such an amazing performance from him. And it was an amazing performance from a lot of guys on offense. And, one of the things, Ryan Grubb was in his bag. And just, yes, some people, it's funny. I said this after the game. It's so funny how we simultaneously do this. You need to commit to the run game more, Ryan Grubb. And then he commits to the run game more, and it's not effective. Why are you running the football, Ryan Grubb? Both those two things can't exist. I think they had the confidence to be able to, hey, if we want to keep them as honest as possible. We do feel like that the way that we're straining them and throwing the football around, maybe some of these runs can start popping, and it just never. I mean, at the end of the game, some of them started popping for 6, 7, 8 yards, putting them in very manageable, very good second down situations when they really needed it. But I just think the offense right now it's clicking on a different level. The amount of screens and the fact that slows down the opposing pass rush because you can't be overly aggressive. You're questioning things. You're slow playing it. I just think the combination of factors is creating a very difficult to defend product, Jimmy.
I love how you brought up the fans insisting that you run the ball, and then you run the ball. It's not seemingly working well, and then you want to abandon the run right off. We talked about it a little bit on the show actually last Wednesday about committing to the run. Literally needs to be a commitment. It doesn't matter that it's not working. What matters is that Georgia has to defend it. Because
right.
if you just abandon it, then Georgia doesn't have to defend it. Then the passing game becomes far more complicated and difficult to defend when Georgia on every snap is like, they're throwing it, we're defending the throw, The fact that Ty was able to complete a lot of the passes he did was because Alabama insisted on continuing to run the ball. So I think that was a big part of Alabama's success. Not success on the ground, but a commitment to trying and a commitment to making Georgia defend it. I love that. I did think it was Grubb's so far his signature performance at Alabama. I'm not as crazy about the trick type plays as others, but again, I'm big on making Georgia defend a lot and putting things on tape because you've got some big games coming up. And the next time you line Caden Proctor out wide, now there's all sorts of things you can do with that. You can throw it to Caden again because until someone stops it, maybe it's a good idea just to do that. But you can obviously use Caden as the blocker that springs a faster, wide receiver over there. You can move Caden over there and the entire defense shifts over there going, oh my gosh, they put the 380-pound guy out there again. We got to go do that. And then you counter it the other way where there's no one now because all the attention's over there. There's so much you can do now. And that's just a good example of what we're talking about. You got to show them. I remember talking about pitching last week about, hey, if your best pitch is a fastball, great. You got to show them something else. You can't just throw it over and over and over and over again. You got to show them something else or the fastball won't be as effective. So I love Alabama's continued commitment to the run game, even if it's not working. You can work on that in the offseason as to why it's not working as well as maybe you'd like or as well as it should. But I think a huge part of Alabama's success going forward is still going to be an insistence on slamming Jam Miller and Kevin Riley into the scrum over and over again. Why? It makes life so much easier for Ty and the receivers, and they showed that on Saturday.
Well, you got to think about it from Georgia's perspective. Kirby is very Nick Saban-esque in the way that he approaches things, and he even said in his post game. And I was actually just looking at the everything that Kirby Smart said, trying to find it, but I was listening to it, and something stood out because he mentioned that there was not that there was an emphasis on stopping the run, but that was like they were talking about the success that they had stopping the run and saying that was something that we had wanted and planned to do, so like that was part of the goal. Like Nick Saban, Kirby Smart, that type of coach, they want to go in and say, we're going to make you one-dimensional, especially when you're trying to put as much of the game on a semi-new starting quarterback in a very hostile environment, because sometimes those guys will crash and burn. And I will say that based off of probably what they saw on tape from Ty Simpson against Florida State, it wasn't that he crashed and burned by any means, but he did have some issues. The decision making, being able to run for that first down and electing to pull it up and throw it and throwing an inaccurate pass, like that's just your mind. You're not processing like you need to as far as decision making in those moments. Probably was the first career start. It was the fact that they were playing from behind, a lot of strain. It was the crowd. Either way, they see that and they say, well, maybe we should try that. Maybe we should say, you know what? They're not running the football on us. We're putting all of it on Ty Simpson's shoulders. We'll see how he responds. They just didn't know that Ty Simpson was going to handle that like Superman and that he was going to have zero issues with that. And in a lot of ways, it actually ended up playing into Alabama's hand, which makes sense when you think about what Alabama had already been doing well. But that is something to at least consider because, you did have a Georgia defense that is certainly not built for those passing situations. There's deficiencies in the secondary. There's deficiencies with the pass rush. So what do? Do you say, well, let's also have deficiencies and giving them opportunities to run the football? Or do you say, okay, we're going to make them one-dimensional and try to take it from there, put them in very unfavorable situations, which they did at times. But Alabama was just, where this game was really won in a lot of ways was on third down. Alabama smoked them on third down. It didn't matter what it was other than like a 3rd and 20. If it was 3rd and even somewhat reasonable, 3rd and 9, 3rd and 8, like they were converting at an extremely high rate, a very rare rate. But what I will say is that I loved the actual usage of the players. First of all, like you got to think, you got 8 or more targets to your big 3 at wide receiver and Ron Williams, Jeremy Bernard, and Isaiah Horton. I thought you were timely with your Latzier Brooks moments, your Josh Cuevas moments. But you also got the running backs involved. They had 5 total catches for 56 yards. So they averaged over 11 yards per catch. That's big. Awesome. But you also got 16 carries for Jam Miller in his first game back, and you got 10 for Kevin Riley. So those are healthy rushing amounts for your top 2 backs, which I also want to talk about. You didn't see Richard Young. You didn't see Daniel Hill. Right now, with where this offense is at, and it's kind of where we were expecting it to go at this point, I think that you've got close to 40 pass attempts. You're getting different guys quite a bit of volume as far as the passing game, but you're also getting plenty of rushing opportunities for your running backs. I think this is kind of the right combination to have, Jimmy.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I want a continued commitment and continued emphasis on running the ball. I think some of those third downs, it wasn't necessarily because Alabama's run game put them in favorable third downs. The Alabama run game was helping them avoid 3rd and 12s because even though they weren't ripping off long runs and ripping off 8 and 9 yarders, Alabama's third downs were a little manageable because the run game was getting some forward push, even if the yard per carry number isn't great. 2.5. If you run the ball forward for 2.5 yards 2 times in a row, you have a very makeable 3rd and 5. That's so different than 3rd and 13. You're going to convert 3rd and 5s. 3rd and 13s are out the window. But Alabama's run game was good enough to keep them out of the 3rd and longs. That was big. But in terms of the personnel, like Clint was talking about, Jam Miller is so good in pass protection, and if you're gonna throw the ball first, just think about in terms. I like making it simple. Why? Because I'm very simple-minded, very elementary when it comes to football. Okay, I'm very elementary, probably because that's all the brain capacity I have for it. But keep it this simple. If you're either a run first or a pass first. I think we all know under DeBoer and Grubb, Alabama's going to be pass first. We saw what they did at Washington. Sure, they had Penix, but they're going to be pass first. That's kind of what they do. If you're pass first, then here's a couple of things you've got to have that are non-negotiables. Your offensive linemen have to be good pass protectors. That's it. That's what they've got to do first. By the way, huge difference from the Nick Saban era, right? Where Saban had a bunch of 370-pound guys. I think DeBoer's going to want some athletic pass protectors up front. And the second thing you need isn't a back that's going to rush for 2,000 yards like Derrick Henry and lead the league. What you need is a back that what? Pass protects. That's what you're doing most, right? That's what comes first. Jam is outstanding as a pass protector, and that's why I think he should play and get the most snaps, period, because it's almost the first thing we're asking those guys to do. Now, obviously, you need some playmaking there. I'm really impressed with what Kevin Riley has been able to do with his limited snaps. But the fact of the matter is, I think with the offense as constructed, you've got to be very, very pass protection heavy. And Alabama's doing a good job of that with their personnel. And that's going to heavily play into who you're seeing at running back.
Yeah, I think that certainly plays a role. And I also want to point out, what are we talking about? I've already mentioned, I think on multiple occasions, how effective Ty Simpson was off play action. How can you be effective off play action if the defense knows that you're not running the football? If you be like, so you're trying to run the football to set up where I think by far Ty Simpson was the most effective. And it was his ability to process, but it was also the threat of running the football because they ran it 26 times with their running backs. And you also got Jeremy Bernard involved, with a handful of carries. Ty Simpson, he got, a few carries, made some clutch pickups when things broke down around him. That is, as much as everybody wants them to not run the football, you don't want to give the defense the impression that you're not going to be running the football because it's going to make everything more difficult as far as what else you want to do. And that is something else that this offense does, is it strains you in a variety of ways. It throws everything at you, and you've got to defend it all. If you abandon the run in this type of game, you are taking an element that they have to defend or worry about completely out of the equation and saying, don't even worry about this anymore. And then you're allowing them to focus in on those other areas where you are having success, which will make them less successful. So I understand the frustrations from people. Everybody wants to run the football better. I think Danny Lewis had a pretty good game coming back, to be honest with you. I thought he was a pretty good, player. We'll get to the tight ends here in just a minute. It was interesting, the offensive line usage. That was another big element of this because, you had up to two players at every position other than center see at least a couple of snaps, and granted, Caden Proctor didn't come off the field. So the two snaps that Jackson Lloyd played at left tackle, Caden Proctor was lined up. He was flexed or yeah. So or it was an over set where he was moving over and becoming an extra tackle, which is technically a tight end. Guys like Will Sanders and Wilkin Formby, he played 72 out of 79 snaps, despite the fact that Michael Carroll got 25 snaps out of 79 total offensive snaps for Alabama. Why? Because Wilkin Formby slid into right guard. So it really wasn't, Wilkin Formby played 18 snaps at right guard. Jaden Roberts played 7. And then Gino Vandermark handled the rest of them. Will Sanders, like I said, he got 25 snaps of his own for Cam Dewberry. I thought Cam Dewberry played okay, but Will Sanders, I don't think he played perfect by any means, but you can tell they really covet that athleticism and just his ability to get out in space and what it can provide as far as straining defenses on the perimeter. I like where this offensive line is trending. I don't think Wilkin Formby is the most powerful player in the world, but I do think he's got a lot of likable traits. His biggest deficiency, even though it wasn't really reflected in this game, is getting beat with speed off the edge. And if you move him inside, it's going to protect him a little bit. So I actually, in some ways, I really like playing different players and trying to find the best 5 moving forward.
Yeah, and again, I want to emphasize about how big a change it is from the Saban offense to the DeBoer offense and that makeup of that offensive line. Again, I sometimes oversimplify things to make it even simpler for myself to understand. But I think under the Saban era, you almost had a situation where your offensive linemen were 5 guards. Now going forward, you sort of want 5 tackles, and I think that's why Wilkin Formby sliding inside makes so much sense in this offense, which is something you'd never see. I don't think Saban do. Saban liked the Cam Dewberrys, the Caden Proctors, the Jaden Roberts, these huge hulking guys who were earth movers that could move someone off the line of scrimmage, but would struggle a little bit in pass protection when they played leaner, more athletic front sevens. And I think with the DeBoer and Grubb, you're going to see this continued emphasis on tackle types playing more than just tackle. But I liked, you brought up the tight ends. Danny Lewis in his first action of the year is big. Alabama, so desperate to get some help at tight end. Sometimes they use an offensive lineman out there. It would be nice if they use nothing but tight ends in that room in terms of reps we all know Cuevas is going to get the most reps, but Danny Lewis being able to come in and be that Y, I mean, that's what he needs. Cuevas is okay at Y, maybe even better than I thought he might be, but he's not ideal. And Danny Lewis might be the ideal Y. That means now Josh Cuevas, guy you can move around a little more. Jay Lindsey, that Y guy that comes in, he's still playing some snaps. You move offensive linemen over there. So I think tight end is improving. I'd like to see them utilize Cuevas more. Hope people noticed in the game-ending play, not a criticism against Ty at all, because he made the play that won the game, the short pass to Jam Miller on the same exact play, the deeper on the route tree. Jam was short, Cuevas was deep, Cuevas wide open. That would have been fun, but a lower even though he's open, it's a lower percentage play. You get a drop there, you got to sweat out the end of the game. Todd did the smart thing, but notable that Cuevas was open deeper down the field and behind the defense, even with the game on the line. I will hope Alabama utilizes Josh Cuevas more going forward as they add weapons here.
First of all, I loved that play call at the end of the game.
Yep.
Fake the sprint out to the left and slip the running back into the flats to the opposite side. Beautiful play design. Completely understood why Georgia fell for it, and they just used it at the most opportune time. And I agree with you. Granted, I think you broke that down about perfectly, because Cuevas is certainly open, but it's a lower percentage throw, and you're just trying to get the first down. All you got to do is get first down. Is victory formation. Go hit some knees, head to the locker room. So, would it have padded the stats more? Would it have,
week one, does Ty throw deeper to Josh?
Very possible.
And maybe that's the difference between week 1 and week 4.
Very possible. But I do feel like that you were going primarily to Jam there, and Jam was immediately open. It had worked. Take it and get out of there. I loved it. I loved it. And what put you in that position was your first down run when you really needed it, which was putting you in that second short, which then, of course, you don't get anything on second down, but you're in a very manageable third down situation where Georgia really doesn't know what you're doing. Are you going to try to run the football? If they had abandoned the run way before, first of all, they wouldn't have seen run coming, and you wouldn't have been able to do the fake sprint out and then back the other way. Like, it all goes hand in hand, and it all kind of works together. So, speaking of the tight ends, Lewis's return, I don't think he's 100% still, but I will say he looks serviceable. Like, he looks like a guy who's going to be able to help out at tight end. And something that I want to point out is when you look at the percentage of plays that Cuevas was playing in line over the first 3 weeks, it was 68.3% in week 1, 67.9 in week 2, 73.5 in week 3. That bumped down to 50.9% against Georgia. And I think a pretty big part of that was Danny Lewis spending 60% of his snaps as the inline guy. So I think you might see a little bit more 12 personnel, even though you've seen it quite a bit, and they've gotten Jay Lindsey involved and Caleb Edwards. You have not really seen Brody Dalton. You haven't seen Jack Samarco. So it's been kind of a true freshman who has been the main one that they've had to lean on. And, you can see the upside and what the future is going to be there. But I think their ability to run 12 personnel has been somewhat limited up to where, at least this past Saturday, and they were able to do it a little bit more effectively. And I think that's going to once again put strain on opposing defenses. But at the same time, when you've got this group of receivers, and what I like about it is that because of some of the issues at running back, they can not have a running back on the field. They'll use Jeremy back there in the backfield, and then, you put him in motion, do different things with him. They'll even get him some carries back there. But you have a guy who can handle some running back responsibilities while actually having multiple receivers, where you can still have a tight end on the field. I guess you can even have 2 tight ends in the field and then have multiple receivers, because you got Jeremy Bernard. Once again, flexibility, strain. That's what this offense is supposed to do. It's what it was always supposed to do, and they are doing that to perfection right now.
Yeah, I love those. I think it really shows everyone exactly what we're saying is Danny Lewis his presence allows you to use Cuevas in a better way, Cuevas and what he does best. I mean, is he better Y? Is he better H? Better H, and then now you got Danny Lewis at Y. So now you've improved 2 spots, not just one. You're better at 2 spots. Caleb Edwards did a fantastic job sort of filling in for Danny until he was ready. And he's going to continue to play some snaps. And I like that Alabama uses a lot of tight ends, substitutes based on down and distance of personnel. Last year, Alabama was in 12 personnel a lot. Why? Because last year, unlike DeBoer, most years they were run first last year. Why? The quarterback. The quarterback was a run first guy. So the offense was run first. You saw a lot of 12 personnel. This year, pass. We're going back to pass first. That means not as much 12 personnel, but you have to keep it in your repertoire to make the defense defend everything. I said it in complimenting Georgia last week. I said, they make you defend everything. Well, credit Alabama with sort of taking that from them. I think Alabama made Georgia defend everything: the deep ball, the intermediate, the rollouts, throwing the ball to a number of different receivers, the run, the pass, made you defend everything. That makes things very difficult on even an elite defense. And Alabama did a better job of that. Now, Georgia did a better job of being productive in the run game. That's what Alabama no doubt needs to work on. Long season, you're only a third of the way through it. My hope is that Alabama's better running the football. I think a part of that is going to be more of those 12 personnel packages that Clint was talking about.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot. I think they're working on it. What I like about what they're doing with the offensive line, if you're going to adopt more of this, hey, we're going to run the football, but if we continue to put real strain on opposing defenses through a very diverse passing attack with a lot of different dynamic options, then that should start to open up some of these things. And so maybe, as far as Cam Dewberry, who's more of a big, powerful guy, you go to a Will Sanders who kind of can play more out on the perimeter and into space and do some of those things. And so maybe long term, that's kind of the play there. You're kind of grooming Michael Carroll. I think we all see it. The fact that he was given 25 snaps in a very hostile environment as a true freshman against a Kirby Smart defense. I mean, I think that is trust. And so, still keeping Wilkin-Formby involved. Now you kind of got potentially 3 options there at right guard. I think that is big because Wilkin-Formby, from everything that I had heard and seen, I mean, I had never seen him playing guard since he got to Alabama. So that's certainly a new, interesting development. But Michael Carroll can be a problem solver down the road. I think Danny Lewis, the more healthy that he gets, he can be a problem solver for you. I thought he blocked pretty darn well, whether it be, when you were flexing him out and asking him to get involved on some of those quick passes to the perimeter, or whether it be inline. And I think Cuevas had some really good blocking moments as well, which really hadn't been his game up to this point. But I think in the way that he's was being able to be used as more of that move guy, it played into his favor a little bit more as well. So hopefully that is going to be beneficial. And the last thing I want to talk about before we, wrap this one up and then we'll move on to the defense is the receivers. Because, man, first of all, I guess we'll start with the bad. Ryan Williams, another critical drop. And granted, I say critical, it felt very critical at the moment. Alabama still went down the field and scored. So, I mean, at the end of the day, it didn't end up mattering on that front. But it's 5 drops in about 13 snaps, which is a fifth of the amount of snaps that he played in 2024 as a true freshman. And he only had 7 drops last season and about 683 snaps, I believe. So that is, or 638, one of the two. And so that's a big problem. Now, granted, he tried to make up for it. He's still getting volume. I mean, still had 8 targets. He's averaging, I want to say, like 8 or 9 targets a game in the 3 games that he's played. The volume's probably not going anywhere, folks. But you do need to take into account this is a guy who's kind of struggling with drops right now. That was a clear, wide open, easy catch to make. Couldn't bring it in. Obviously, Georgia had a true freshman who was dealing with something similar. I also want to point out they're probably the same age, if I had to guess, even though Ryan Williams has been in college for a year. But at the same time, that has become a talking point and a major problem for Ryan Williams right now.
It really is, and it's a major issue. I mean, there's no ducking that. I mean, Ryan's got to work on it, and in terms of how to fix it, I'm not sure. To me, it's more of a mental thing. I'm sort of starting to compare it to Seth's problem. Seth McLaughlin, Alabama's center, back in Saban's final year.
The
developed
yips.
a yips. He developed the yips, and all of a sudden struggled with the shotgun snap big time. What he could used to do in his sleep became a mental block for him. And I would like to point out that once Seth solved the yips, he won the Remington Award as the best center in all of college football. I mean, he solved it. Now, it took him an off season and a new coaching staff. I'm hoping that's not the case here for Ryan, and that's why I don't think it's an apples to apples. But I bring it up because that's what this is, and Ryan's got to figure it out. Seth did; he became the best center in college football. Ryan, once he figures this out, very possibly becomes the best wide receiver in college football. I think he will figure it out. Seth did, and I think this is going to be an easier problem for Ryan to tackle. I would suggest, because Ryan's probably listening to the show, I'm sure he is. I would suggest, Ryan, that you call Nick Saban and get Julio's phone number from Nick if you don't have it already, and call Julio and just listen. Just listen. Tell Julio the problem. He knows. He knows. He's aware. Julio, what'd you do? Because Julio had a really similar issue that he had to overcome, and boy, did he overcome it. Call Julio and just listen and follow the advice of someone that's literally been in those shoes, and it worked out great for him. And it'll work out great for Ryan. In terms of Jimmy, will drops haunt Ryan his whole career? Yes and no. Yes, in the sense they all drop balls. That ain't never going to completely stop because it doesn't for the best of the best on Sundays. But no, in the sense that I don't think that his current issue with drops is going to haunt him. I think he's going to dramatically improve and it will be less of an issue. But it reminds me a lot of Seth.
Yeah, I think that's a good comparison. I think that is the problem. Now, granted, he's always kind of been a body catcher. He's got to get better with that. Stay on the jugs machine, catch a bunch of balls after practice. I'm sure he'll continue to do that. Work ethic has never been an issue with this guy. So what I like about it is that Alabama did not abandon him. After he dropped that pass, after having 4 in the first 2 games that he played, Bama fans were ready to send him to the bench. Get Lotzier in here, send him to the bench. Isaiah Horton's doing good things. Jeremy Bernard's doing good things. We don't need Ryan. Not only did they not do that, but he got, 7 targets after that? If that was might have been his second target in that game, but I think it was his first. So either 6 or 7 targets afterwards. So not only did they not abandon him, but they continued to try to feature him almost as much as the other 2 guys. So I thought that was important. Let him work through some of these things because, I mean, like he proved against Wisconsin, and he proved it against Georgia last year on a huge stage. So it's not like, oh, it's against these inferior opponents that you're going to kill. No, I mean, he does it in the high pressure situations as well. If fans will be patient with him, and I understand there's a lot of frustration, he can really continue to help this Alabama wide receiver room. It is a good wide receiver room without him, but it is a next level elite with him. So, I mean, I think right now Alabama's got 4 guys. It's so funny because Jalen Waddle, being a true freshman, wearing the number 17, having a very similar type of skill set in a lot of ways to a Jalen Waddle, just like Waddle did his freshman season. He's kind of adopted that wide receiver 4 role where he's getting those spot starts every once in a while, but also, I would view him as a starter. I understand he only got 2 targets, but I mean, he's been averaging about 3.3 targets per game over the last 3 games after getting 0 against Florida State, and he's making plays with all of them just about. I mean, he had 2 catches for 40 yards. It was a 21-yard gain and a 19-yard gain. One of those was a screen that he broke several tackles and turned it into either a 19 or 21. I don't remember which one it was, but for close to a 20-yard gain. And, he's doing some really, really good things. Isaiah Horton, his usage continues to go up as far as the snaps that he's playing, the number of targets that he's getting. And that included tying a team lead 9 targets on Saturday for, he caught 5 of them for 65 yards and a touchdown. He did have that drop, which was a phenomenal throw, a layered throw by Ty Simpson. You'd like to see him bring that in, but I think their chemistry, and that was shown on the touchdown catch where he sat down on the bootleg. That is the chemistry between 2 guys that really wanted to play college football together. And one of the reasons that I think Isaiah Horton is in Tuscaloosa rather than Miami right now, they are really good friends. They're close. They do a lot together. And I think that's starting to show up on the field. Isaiah Horton's one of those guys where as he continues to get more and more healthy after not being healthy for the season opener against Florida State, he's starting to do some really good things, and it is making this Alabama offense dynamic and a massive problem for opposing defenses.
Yeah, this summer we were bragging on Ty, and they're like, "Where's the evidence he's good? Y'all are just hoping. Y'all are." And I'm like, some of the evidence that we're talking about is Zay Horton's transfer to Alabama. Zay Horton, who was on NFL radar at Miami, right where he was, just played with the #1 pick in the draft, and he's got Carson Beck coming in. And this is a guy that says, "You know what I'm going to do for my career to help me? I'm going to go play with Ty Simpson." And I think Zay is showing to the world why that he chose Alabama. Not that Carson Beck is bad. As a matter of fact, Carson Beck's having a great year. But Zay knew Ty, was very comfortable with Ty, and was comfortable enough with Ty putting his NFL career in Ty's hands. So it wasn't just Clint and I hoping that Ty was going to be good. There was a lot of evidence out there that there was a lot of believers close to the situation willing to put their career in Ty's hands. Like DeBoer, for instance, not going into the transfer portal to look for a quarterback. He liked the hand he was dealt with Ty. But boy, what a phenomenal wide receiver group. And I would just point out that here's a couple of good wide receivers: Rico Scott, Cole Adams. You're not even really playing those guys, and they're good. Those are good football players. They'd be ones for anyone in this league. They're that good. Hard to find snaps for everybody at that wide receiver group. It's a really deep group of good players. But Ryan, next level. Jeremy, maybe best player on the football team. Zay Horton, one day headed for the NFL. Latsier Brooks, Jalen Waddle comparisons are fair. There's no reason to play anybody. If you want to play Cole or Rico, you're putting, a couple of those guys on the bench. That's never a good idea. So I just love that group. It's as good a group as anyone's got in the country.
There's no doubt about it. And, Jeremy Bernard, I want to point out, he had 5 catches for 35 yards and a touchdown. He had 38 yards after the catch, excuse me. So that kind of tells you when you have more yards after the catch than you did total yards or receiving yards, at least, I think that's pretty telling. Did y'all really think we were going to get out of this offensive segment without talking about Caden Proctor getting an 11-yard rush, which was a catch? I mean, we said after the game, Mick and I did, they should count that as a catch. I get it was behind the line of scrimmage. I understand, but you're taking away the fact that he brought that rock in before he went barreling over people. I did think, and I want to point this out, this is the main thing, which give him his props first of all, but also, Jimmy, do you remember who they had as the 2 guys in front of him blocking?
Germ was one.
Germ and Jam.
Right. Germ and Jam. Okay.
They flexed Jam, and these are 2 guys that will get after your ass when it comes to blocking. They put their best blocking receiver out there to get the big boy. Hey, you block for us. We're going to put our 2 best skill players out there to block for you. And Jam, what I love is, some of that stuff, they'll put Germ in the backfield and they'll get him carries. And kind of like Jalen Milroe last year where Jam would act as the lead blocker, they just hand the football off to Jeremy and let Jam do that for him. And he will get after people doing that. Freaking love his willingness to get after you and do whatever he can to help this football team. His presence back on Saturday was absolutely huge.
We've got to be a tougher football team on offense. We have to be tougher. That starts with Jam Miller, who might be Jam and Germ, pound for pound, are the 2 toughest guys that play on offense for Alabama. They're the 2 toughest dudes. You got to leave them out there hoping that that's contagious. They're physical and tough guys. And I love that play, and I love all you can do off of it the rest of the year. Won't be the last time we see it. Might be the last time Caden catches the ball. I don't know. But I know it shouldn't be the last time we see it, because now there's a world of things you can do with that play to get the defense worried. And now every defense that prepares for Alabama sees that play. They have to spend time on their plan when they see Alabama line up. And you only get 20 hours to practice every week. Putting all that on tape is really valuable.
Absolutely, man. That's a great point. All right, that's going to do it for the offensive side. We appreciate you guys. We will be back again tomorrow to discuss the defense. Jimmy, as always, I appreciate you, and we will talk to you guys soon.
I may not suit up on Saturdays anymore, but I'm still in the game.
Let's roll.
In here, I call the plays, make adjustments, and lay it on the line. Want to feel that fire, that rush? Then you've got to get in the game. I used to say it in the tunnel, and I still say it now. Let's roll.